The maître recognized me immediately as my family walked into Lamar's, the most exclusive French restaurant in the city. I saw the flicker of understanding in his eyes, but he maintained perfect professionalism. "Good evening," my sister Diana said imperiously. "Reservation for Walker, party of 4." I hung back, watching my parents and sister do their usual routine, making sure everyone noticed their designer clothes, their expensive watches, their air of belonging. They hadn't wanted to invite me to this birthday dinner, but appearances mattered. Can't have people wondering why the eldest Walker daughter wasn't present at her father's celebration. "Right this way," the maître said, leading us through the elegant dining room. I caught the subtle glances from the staff, the small nods of recognition they tried to hide. Diana looked at my simple black dress with barely concealed disdain. "I'm surprised you didn't wear one of your discount store specials, Sarah." "Some of us have different priorities than designer labels," I replied mildly. "Yes, like barely making rent on that tiny apartment," she smirked. Mom shot us both a warning look as we sat down. "Girls, please. It's your father's birthday." Dad was already studying the wine list, his face pinched at the prices. "These markups are highway robbery." I bit back a smile, remembering the actual wholesale costs. "Sarah probably needs to check the prices before ordering," Diana stage whispered to Mom. "Wouldn't want her to embarrass herself." A waiter approached, John Luke, one of my best employees. I saw the moment my family dismissed him as just another servant. "Can you even afford this place?" Diana continued, examining her menu. "Maybe you should just get an appetizer." That's when Jean-Luc spoke. "Welcome back, Miss Walker. Your usual table was reserved for another party, but I hope this one is satisfactory." Dad choked on the complimentary water. Mom's menu slipped from her fingers. Diana's face went from smug to stunned in record time. "It's perfect, Jean-Luc," I smiled. "Thank you. Your usual wine, Miss Walker?" he asked innocently, as if he hadn't just detonated a social bomb at the table. "Yes, please. The 1982 Bordeaux." Dad's face went pale. That bottle cost more than his monthly country club dues. "Sarah," Mom managed weakly. "What is going on?" I took a sip of water, enjoying the moment. "Oh, didn't I mention? I bought Lamar's 6 months ago, along with the entire restaurant group." Diana's mouth opened and closed like a fish. But you live in that tiny apartment. You shop at normal stores." "Because I choose to," I said simply. "Unlike some people, I don't measure success by what I wear or where I live." Jean-Luc returned with the wine, presenting it with a flourish. "An excellent choice, as always, Miss Walker. Shall I have Chef Michel prepare your favorite soul for dessert?" "That would be lovely," I smiled. "And please bring us the full tasting menu. It's a special occasion, after all." As Jean-Luc departed, silence descended on the table, the kind of silence that comes when people realize they've been sneering at the owner of the establishment. My phone buzzed, probably another update about the new location we were opening in London, but that could wait. Right now, I was going to enjoy watching my family try to process that their poor daughter owned not just this restaurant, but the entire chain of high-end establishments they love to flaunt their wealth in. Sometimes the best revenge isn't telling people you're successful. It's letting them figure it out while they're in the middle of mocking you. Dad took a large gulp of his water, probably wishing it was something stronger. Diana was frantically Googling under the table, no doubt looking up the restaurant group's ownership.
Me?
I just sat back, picked up my menu, though I knew every item by heart, and smiled. Dinner was about to get very interesting. The tasting menu arrived, each course more exquisite than the last. Chef Michel was showing off tonight, knowing I was at the table. My family sat in uncomfortable silence, picking at their food while trying to process their new reality. So, Dad finally managed, his voice strained. "How exactly did this happen?" I took a sip of the perfectly aged Bordeaux. "Remember that wasteful MBA program you refused to pay for? The one you said would never amount to anything because I focused on restaurant management instead of finance like Diana?" He shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Diana suddenly became very interested in her foie gras. "Turns out there was a market for revolutionizing high-end restaurant operations," I continued. "My company now owns 32 establishments across 3 continents. Mom's fork clattered against her plate. 32, including Le Cirque in New York, Lame One in Paris, and that little place in London where you celebrated your anniversary last year, I added casually. The one you bragged about getting impossible reservations for. Diana's face flushed. That's why they seated us immediately when I dropped the Walker name. Indeed, I smiled. Though, you really shouldn't be rude to the staff there. They tell me everything. Jean-Luc appeared with the next course, a perfectly seared scallop dish that wasn't even on the regular menu. Chef Michel's newest creation, he announced. He'd like your opinion, Miss Walker, before we add it to the permanent menu. I could see Dad calculating the value of my empire in his head, the same man who told me I was throwing away my potential on restaurants instead of joining his investment firm. The London location opens next month, I mentioned, sampling the scallop. We're already booked solid for the first 3 months. London? Mom's voice was faint. But you said you couldn't afford to join us for our London trip last summer. I was there, I replied, overseeing construction of my new restaurant. I just stayed in my penthouse instead of the family hotel. Diana's phone buzzed, probably one of her society friends who'd spotted us and spread the word about who really owned their favorite restaurant. Is that why you never moved to a bigger apartment? She asked. Never bought designer clothes? I prefer to invest in things that matter, I said, like paying my staff the highest wages in the industry, providing health insurance and education benefits, creating something meaningful instead of just showing off wealth. The Samo approached with another bottle of wine. Ms. Walker, that investment group is here again. They're offering to buy the restaurant chain. Tell them what you always tell them, Fipe, I smiled. Not for sale, at any price. Dad nearly dropped his glass. Investment group? Morgan Stanley, I said casually. They've been trying to acquire us for months. Offered 12 times earnings last week. The look on his face, the investment banker who dismissed my business plan years ago, was priceless. Mom leaned forward. Darling, why didn't you tell us? We've been so worried about you living so modestly. Because success isn't about showing off, Mom. It's about building something real. I gestured around the elegant dining room. Everything I own, I built myself. No family money, no connections, no trust fund. Diana's face had moved from shock to calculation. So, about reservations still need to be made in advance. I cut her off. Your name doesn't guarantee special treatment anymore. In fact, I smiled sweetly, you might find some of our establishments mysteriously booked when you call. The dessert cart approached, Chef Michel's famous soul, paired with a vintage port that cost more than Diana's designer purse. Happy birthday, Dad, I raised my glass. Consider dinner my treat, as it has been every time you've dined in one of my restaurants for the past year. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just owning the restaurant. It's letting them realize they've been unknowingly depending on your generosity all along. The port was excellent, almost as excellent as watching my family try to swallow their pride along with their dessert. As coffee was served, the dynamic at the table had shifted completely. Gone was Diana's condescension, replaced by awkward attempts at flattery. Mom kept mentioning friends who would love to invest in my next venture. Dad mostly sat in stunned silence, no doubt thinking of the multiple times he'd bragged about my sister's junior position at his firm while dismissing my little restaurant job. Ms. Walker, Jean-Luc approached again. Chef Michel requests your presence in the kitchen when convenient. The London menu needs your final approval. Diana practically bounced in her seat. Oh, could I come? I'd love to see. The kitchen is for staff and ownership only, I cut her off politely. Health regulations, you understand? Mom tried a different approach. Darling, you must let us host a celebration. To think our daughter is such a successful restaurant owner, I finished. Funny, that wasn't worth celebrating when you thought I was just managing one place. The Samole appeared with a folder. The wine list for London, Ms. Walker and Mr. Thompson called about the Tokyo location. Dad's head snapped up. Tokyo? Opening next spring, I confirmed, though I'm sure Diana can tell you all about it. She was just there last month, trying to use the Walker name to get a reservation at my Paris restaurant. Diana had the grace to blush. I didn't know that the staff would tell me that every attempted name drop, every time you were rude to my employees, every complaint about prices would get back to me, I smiled. I know everything that happens in my restaurants. I stood, smoothing my cheap dress, actually a handmade piece from a small Parisian atelier. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to speak with my chef. But it's Dad's birthday dinner, Mom protested weakly. And I've paid for it, as I've paid for every meal you've had in my establishments. I gestured to Jean-Luc. Please make sure my family has everything they need. Add the usual gratuity to their bill. Their bill? Diana squeaked. Of course, I smiled. Just because I own the place doesn't mean everything's free. That wouldn't be good business, would it, Dad? In the kitchen, Chef Michel greeted me with his usual enthusiasm, showing me the planned menu for London. As we discussed wine pairings and seasonal specials, I could see my family through the kitchen's viewing window, huddled in conversation. My phone buzzed with a text from Diana. I'm sorry for everything, for how we treated you. Another from Mom. We were wrong. So wrong. And finally, one from Dad. I never saw it, your vision, your potential. Can we talk, please? I typed out a single response to all of them. Reservations required. 3-month waiting list. No exceptions. Then I turned back to Chef Michel's brilliant creations, to the empire I'd built while they weren't watching, to the success they'd never seen coming. Later that night, as I walked through my modest apartment, actually the entire top floor of the building, minimally furnished because I preferred it that way, I looked at the framed review from when I'd first bought Le Mars. Unknown buyer transforms struggling restaurant into culinary empire. Unknown, underestimated, unstoppable. I picked up my phone and sent one final text to my family. Next time you judge someone's worth, remember the person you're looking down on might actually own the ground you're standing on. Then I opened my laptop to review plans for the Tokyo location. After all, success isn't about proving others wrong. It's about continuing to prove yourself right. And sometimes the sweetest taste isn't in the finest wine or the perfect soul. It's in the moment they realize they've been dining in your success all along.